The UN General Assembly, President Paul Henry Spaak, 1957, 1961, said, "We do not want another committee. We have too many already. What we want is a man of sufficient stature to hold the allegiance of all the people and to lift us up out of the economic morass into which we are sinking. Send us such a man, whether it be God or devil, we will receive him." The question at large, how close are we to this one world leader? First, a organized regime with a network that covers the globe. And this is the UN, who just celebrated its 60th birthday in 2005. I want you to carefully listen. Stalin, that good communist, said if you put countries into regional trade zones, it would provide the basis for integrating the world into world dictatorship. Not long after Spock's statement, Phase 1 began in 1973 with Richard Nixon. He closed the gold window. Our dollar was no longer backed by gold. With an executive order 11647, the United States was then put into 10 regions. Does that sound like the good communist there? Nixon's New American Revolution was the first time in U.S. history the regional boundaries were set up, linking us with the UN Charter's domestic program, making us coterminous. Hang on, it gets better. The Beatles sang around the same time, "We're going to have a revolution." In the 60s, Lennon's famous one-liner, "Who will go first, rock music or Christ?" The Judeo-Christian belief dominated the landscape up until 1992. The only way to weaken the people was to unsaddle the belief system. Isaiah 14:12 states, "O Lucifer, son of the morning, how art thou cut down to the ground," which did weaken the nations. 1933, Roosevelt initiated the transfer of our money system from gold to paper. Nixon severed any tie the money had to the gold, which then expelled the tangible. Reagan set in place the foundation to change the structure of government when he started to sell its assets. Second phase in play, delink the dollar from government. Oversight and its value has been shifted to the market. Have you noticed Wall Street of recent and the dollar as it floats against other currencies? The third phase is a cashless society like one found in Revelation 13:7. The red solar serpent on the front of your CD cover is all about the cashless society. The early 90s, the UN dreams became true when Bush 1 announced the birth and responsibilities America would have putting together this one world government. We have lost 8 million jobs in America. Have you noticed that? More important is to understand that the barriers between the nations and the states are gone, starting in 1944. Journalist John Vion, who's gone to 100 UN meetings. Joan explains what happened at the Rio de Janeiro, and she says Gaia is a female entity. It's Greek for Mother Earth. What happened at the Rio de Janeiro summit, first and foremost, was philosophical. The world up until 1992 was under the Judeo-Christian ethics. God gave man dominance over the earth until 1992. What the UN did, they inverted that truth, and they basically said man was no longer dominant over the earth, but earth was now dominant over man. And they said that we as men, as living human beings, we are equal to the plants and the animals. And so what Gaia really is a pagan or paganism or New Age. Now the UN is espousing a pagan religion, and they are trying to make it equal for each one of us, and therefore stamp out validity and the personhood of Jesus Christ as the Son of God and the Savior of the world. The reality is your dollar bill with Roosevelt's all-seeing eye at the top of the triangle with the Latin words, both I and words are inside the circle. The words allude to the golden boy shall come. 1992 was the startup of Agenda 21 at Rio. In Revelation 13, you see the beast Utopia with his puppeteers refining the state-of-the-art one world government. David Spangler, the director of Planetary Initiative, UN, said no one will enter the New Age order unless they make a pledge to worship Lucifer and to take a Luciferian initiation. Going back as far as July of 1962, John F. Kennedy, or JFK, for the first time ever said, "I will say here and now on this day of independence that the United States will be ready for the Declaration of Interdependence." Bill Clinton, who was a follower of JFK, said, and he was 16 years old when that statement left the president's lips. In 2003, Clinton, instead of globalization, he said, "I prefer the term of interdependence. We cannot escape each other. The challenges that will dominate the next few decades." Like his dad, George Bush II, 2002, said America supports the international development goals and the UN's Millennium Documents. Let me throw this at you. The UN Charter is based on the Russian Constitution. And we have proof of document. A communist spy, Alger Hiss, who drafted the UN's Charter. By now, you should be losing all faith in any party. In the UN's World Constitution, there is a phrase, "The age of the nations must end." And like I said before, all walls or barriers are down. The economics were torn down in 1944 with the birth of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. The political barriers were torn down in 1945 with the UN's birth. Trade barriers in 1994 with the birth and the World Trade Organization. The legal barriers in 1998 with the birth of the International Criminal Court. See if this one doesn't raise the head of the red solar serpent on your CD. The walls between military and intelligence came down in 2001 as a result of 9/11. Now you must ask yourself, my friend, what really occurred at 9/11? Reagan's idea opened the door for Bill Clinton's in 1994, and here we go, reinventing government, which introduced the concept of public-private partnership, a buyout of government by business. 5 years ago, under Bush II, this buyout public-private partnership has escalated. Almost half, 23 states, have caved into the Fabian socialistic mission. What's happening? Simply the gutting of our government. Chicago sold their toll road. It was called the Skyway for $1.8 billion to Spain. It's an everyday occurrence. States are busy selling their infrastructure to the highest bidder. All this sell-off leads to the Fabian Society. In 1905, the Fabian Society hosted and loaned money to the Bolshevik communists for the purpose of revolution in Russia. John Keynes, a member of the Fabian Society, later boasted he shared the Bolsheviks' desire to destroy the free enterprise system by stating, now remember this, that his economic ideas were going to be euthanasia of capitalism. Mussolini read some of Keynes' works and said, "Fascism entirely agrees with Keynes, despite the fact that he's a liberal." Let's move this up to the present tense. Keynes, a good British socialist, said government should borrow money to spend on public works, and that would create jobs and increase the purchasing power. Pray tell me, who said that of recent? No other than Bush II, including the Speaker of the House. All money borrowed for the stimulus package 2008 came from Red China. When Bush I was asked about his regrets while in the Oval Office, he had two. First, that he couldn't and didn't capture Saddam Hussein. Last, he didn't see the mandate of the UN. In 2006, on PBC, Al Gore said the U.S. would soon become a totalitarian state. Former Treasury Secretary John Snow signaled the economic structure change in 2004 and said all countries are interdependent. The man who drafted the UN, Alger Hiss, was a communist and a Soviet agent. Many of the British prime ministers have been belong to the Socialist International, including Tony Blair, Bush II's friend, who, by the way, Tony is coming to Yale in 2009. His topic to speak about faith and globalization. I wonder what faith Tony is going to speak about. Maybe Gaia? Lenin said communism is socialism in a hurry. The best way to destroy the capitalist system is to debauch the currency. The goal of the communism, or the goal of socialism, is communist. The UN in 2005 celebrated their 60th birthday. Is this just a coincidence that the Mayan witchcraft calendar runs out in 2013? It's very possible before the UN's 66th birthday, Bush 1 will get his wish. If you add up the letters in United Nations, they equal 13. If you add up the letters found in Mother Earth, it equals 11. If you count the spaces inside the circle of the UN symbol, they equal 33. The UN lives by the computer. If you give each letter of the alphabet a corresponding number, such as A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, and so forth, then take that letter times 6, the word computer equals 666. The UN manual is made up of 1,300 pages of rules and taxes. That means that the UN is running the world 24/7. 24/7 originated from witchcraft, and if you add up 2, 4, and 7, it equals 13. All of these numbers are occultic in nature. The UN is running the planet through what they call sustainable development. Their agenda is to reduce the population. Does that surprise you? That's what Bill Clinton's goal was. Into my research, I came across a Dr. Joseph Wiesenbaum of MTI, which is Massachusetts Institution of Technology. The professor said that the computer system could be compared with the National Socialism. This is going to tell you a lot. The UN's constitution comes from Russia, and they're going to pull this thing off by the use of computer. As I said, in 1992, Rio, or Reshaping International Order, began in that time. 1 year later, in 1993, Mikhail Gorbachev came up with the Green Cross International. Now, when you think about a cross, someone dies. The next piece you're going to hear came through John Hagee, and you're not going to have to wonder why or who is going to die. Actually, the report that you're going to hear came from when John Kennedy was still the president. So this has been planned for a long time. In fact, in the book of Daniel, it says that the Antichrist will come and he will change the laws and the times. And he will cause craft to prosper in his hands. He will be of the occult and he'll be a dictator.
1963, 15 members of the Council on Foreign Relations who were in the Kennedy administration met at Iron Mountain, New York to promote their goals for the New World Order. This super secret meeting was held to structure the future of the world. The super secret report, called the Report from Iron Mountain, says on page 66, quote, "It may be that gross pollution," now get that first phrase, "it may be that gross pollution of the environment can eventually replace the possibility of mass destruction by nuclear weapons as the apparent threat to the survival of mankind." Notice the words, "as the apparent threat." In other words, we want to manipulate the people with the fear that we're going to poison the earth with pollution so we can control their lives, control their income, control the economy with their approval so we can do what we want to do all of the time.